I do have a question about the legendary Stepwalker gear and early access exclusive stuff. Can you upgrade uncommon stuff into Stepwalker, like legendary equipment, or is it just limited to 100 forever?
From the initial concept, it started about 3 years ago when Ari, co-founder of Decentraland, and Thor, who was one of the early people at Zynga Games, they kind of came together and they were like, blockchain gaming is good, but how do we make it better? I think the first Slack channel was developed about 2.5 years ago, and then it's been in development since then. I think from kind of initial programming on Unreal Engine to release was about 2.5 years. And we've got about 80 full-time people right now, and then a bunch of other people either on affiliates or moderators throughout the world working on our team.
Yeah, I mean, have you personally like tried other play to earn games? Because a lot of play to earn games right now are like super boring on the gameplay side. Like they're not immersive at all, and it feels like stuff from 15 years ago.
Yeah,
What's your personal opinion on that?
dude, I mean, it's very similar. And don't get me wrong, I don't think this is an especially profound observation that most of the play to earn games right now are not very good games. I think a lot of people see it. There's really no reason to not make a good game. It changes the dynamics, I think, of how you interact with your players and like the player base you can deal with. But the numbers I generally keep in my mind, I'm like, all right, Axie Infinity is kind of the biggest game that's out there in blockchain right now. They oscillate somewhere between 1.5 and 2.5
Yeah,
million.
Axie's market is crazy. Like I think on the market side they did something right.
But the 10th largest MMO game has 15 million monthly active users, and it's Star Citizen. So, like, the 10th largest MMO is still 10 times bigger than Axie. There's a mismatch there. Like, we all know Axie is making money hand over fist, and they've been super successful, but they do not have that kind of massive user uptake that you've seen in other MMO type games. So, I think we saw that, and we're like, you don't need to compromise on both.
Is the coin in game or is it going to be a crypto coin? So like gold from RuneScape, are you taking that approach?
I don't know anybody who picked a game because they thought it was like a real fun Ponzi scheme. You have to make it user friendly, especially the Web 2 people. There's like a visceral hatred among some Web 2 gamers for tokens and NFTs in general. I think what is key is to kind of convince users that skins are important. We all know that skins drive gaming. I mean, that's what Fortnite runs off of. Like, and they make billions of dollars a year, and you just buy the skins. But the thing is like people like skins in Fortnite because it's a big popular game. So I think that's very important for us is like having a very strong player base that's passionate about the game, about the lore, about playing is key to kind of inherently building that interest in having cosmetic skins.
Gunslinger game Grit will launch officially on Epic Games later this year. Epic has proven more open to blockchain based games than competitors following Valve's ban of such games last year. So it looks like a Wild West themed Gunslinger game. The first Web3 game hosted on the Epic Games Store. The game's publisher is Galley Games. They have their own coin too. That's on an exchange.
Yeah, we were talking about it among the BigTime team like yesterday when I think Decrypt came out with their article on it. It looks cool. Looks like it's supposed to come out later on this year. It's been interesting because it seems like some of those like big AAA firms have really struggled with how to integrate NFTs in a way that doesn't antagonize their users. But I think everybody kind of knows that this is the future.
Has the NFT market itself changing affected your ecosystem?
It would be impossible to say like the macroeconomic factors and like overall crypto market hasn't had an impact. But having said that, like our player base has continued to grow and marketplace activity has continued to be pretty high. It's actually continued to rise throughout early access. So even though there's a bear market going on right now, we were still having overall increases in kind of daily trades. For the most part, we were seeing people who were playing the game were holding on to their space. It was people who were not playing the game who were trying to flip things. So we saw that as another data point that people who like played the game liked it, which was encouraging for us.
I do have a question about the legendary Stepwalker gear and early access exclusive stuff. Can you upgrade other equipment like uncommon stuff into Stepwalker, like legendary equipment, or is it just limited to 100 forever?
There's another element into the NFTs that we haven't released a ton of details on. We've discussed a little bit in AMAs, but generally has to do with the level of it.
Mm.
So the only like dimension of the NFT that you're seeing right now is the rarity. So when you get to the upgrading fashion, it's a little bit more than just like plug it into your space or in Forge and Armory and hit upgrade. There's like a recipe of items. And so, like, for example, that's where the token comes into play. That's where the gem and the ores come into play. That's how you can kind of move it to higher levels of rarity.
Like the step walker, they said it's limited to 100. Can people
Yep.
eventually upgrade their NFTs into a step walker, or is this like the cap?
That's
That's
capped.
capped. Okay,
Yeah. So
cool.
they will never be dropped again in
That's
game.
awesome.
Like we are.
Yeah,
And that's like the 61-39%
yeah.
split that we were talking about.
And
Yeah.
my second question, the
Awesome.
appearance on some of the items, especially the legendary, it's a little bit underwhelming at the moment. So, are there plans to upgrade the appearance for the NFTs?
You kind of have to hit a balancing act for the level or expense of like your PC and the specifications and how much you can render things.
Mm,
And we're constantly going through optimization. When you constantly go through optimization, things can go faster and you can render more. That will in turn affect the appearance of the NFTs. So like some of them probably look better than others and the legendaries can probably look cooler. I agree. Like there's definitely more upgrades to come and a lot of that will come as like the improvements into the overall game
yeah,
optimization. The other thing too is I'll be real with you, like I've seen more of the NFTs that we haven't released yet or that are like part of the roadmap, including space, and they are freaking cool. They are like very cool to the point where I was like, can we like tease some more of this
that's
stuff?
awesome.
Those are cool. You can interact with like a massive NFT armory. Like that's in my mind, that's pretty
That's
cool.
awesome.
Did you guys have any crowdfunding prior to creating the game?
Yeah, I wouldn't say crowdfunding. So we had a Series A investment that was like split about 50-50 between investors, like VC type firms and partners and large guilds. Together that raised about $22 million. And then we had land sales and some other types of sales in the fall of 2021 and then again in March of 2022, and together those were enough to kind of bootstrap our way through development.
I have two questions. When will be global launch for BigTime? And second one, when will be more info about the economics?
Global launch, I can tell you it's going to be delayed. We said back in April that it was going to be, end of June or July. It's going to be delayed. I think somewhere in third quarter is realistic. Before then, we will release more details on the economics. And some of it will kind of go in piecemeal. Last week, we did an AMA with Big Yield Guild about how supply and demand broadly work inside the economy. And we talked about that recipe essentially for upgrading your NFTs. Our next several, like, kind of major AMAs on the economy are going to talk a little bit more about how to use those resources in game and a little bit more on the token. And then I'd imagine we're going to do one final AMA before the global launch where we're going to explain guild mechanics and finalize details on the economy and put it out and answer people's questions on the wiki. Unfortunately, I don't have details on what those times look like, but we will release information on the economy and guild mechanics well before global launch. So I would just kind of like generally backtrack off of when we have a global launch date for when those economy questions would be answered.
But I want to ask about is there any guild war or PvP in the near future?
Broadly speaking, we do want to do PvP. We've tested some rudimentary stuff like one versus one, but ultimately, I think PvP is probably farther down the roadmap than esports. I think we'll probably do esports in some capacity before PvP. In part because like enforcing fairness is very very challenging in PvP, and honestly, we're just very well structured for building on our PvE already. I think PvP will happen. I think we're probably. I would be surprised if it would even be before 2023. I think that would be kind of be the earliest we would do it. But it's a great question, though. I'll tell you what, personally, esports is super important to me. I had no idea how important esports were to even casual gamers until I got involved with Big Time. And I would say pretty much every AMA that I've ever done, somebody asked about the timeline for it. So we've brought it up in the team, we've talked about it a lot. And we're going to come up with some pretty interesting ways of doing esports inside of Big Time that I think users are going to like.